driving, can we just get your take on the key moments of that race? 4 wide into turn 1, first of all, then that battle with Max and the penalty that followed.
Yeah, so it was fun at the start and didn't end up the way I'd hoped, but that's motor racing.
We heard you say over the radio just no grip at all when you were rejoining the track. I guess not much more you could have done in that situation.
No, I mean, it's very, very dirty offline, and did the best I could to keep the car or bring it back to the track safely, and that's all I could hope for.
It's so tough to overtake here, of course, after that. But what can you take from the weekend as a whole? Still some positives?
Yeah, I've got some points at least.
Thank you, Lewis.
Can a single mistake ruin a driver's career? Or has Formula One become a game where the rules seem to punish the biggest when they fight the most? Lewis Hamilton was about to return to the podium and ended up anonymous. What happened in Mexico? Today I reveal to you the whole truth behind Hamilton's harshest statements in years, the controversial penalty that destroyed him, and what this means for Ferrari and for F1 in 2025. The race began with an unusually high level of intensity. From the moment the lights went out, it was clear that this would not be just any start. 4 drivers Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc and Norris launched themselves towards turn 1 in a formation that defies any logical prediction. 4 cars side by side at more than 300 kilometers per hour in one of the most complicated braking points on the calendar. At that moment, order, strategy and calm disappeared. It was pure instinct. Hamilton, located on the outside, made an excellent reaction from 3rd position on the grid. His SF25 pulled with surgical precision, and during the first meters he managed to defend his position against Max Verstappen, who came like an arrow from 4th place. It was a symbolic moment. 2 historic rivals who have defined championships to the limit in the past, meeting again in direct combat, this time with different teams, but with the same tension that defined their previous battles. Turn 1 became a high-risk area. Verstappen, true to his aggressive style, forced the inside with excessive speed that caused him to go off the track in turn 2. Although he avoided contact at that point, the movement was uncontrolled enough to cut the track and rejoin just in front of Hamilton's Ferrari. This maneuver was ignored by the stewards, but it left everyone with a clear question. Had Verstappen gained an advantage by skipping part of the circuit? At that time no one knew, but the tension was only going to increase. The following laps became a psychological war. Verstappen stuck to Hamilton, attacking, pressing, testing each braking point. The British, for his part, stood firm, using all his knowledge, all his experience to maintain the position. And then the key moment arrived, lap 6. The duel continued in the backstretch. On the approach to turn 4, Verstappen positioned himself on the outside, while Hamilton chose to defend himself along the more traditional route. In an attempt to maintain the lead, Lewis braked late, but was too ambitious. Adherents did not respond. The wheels locked and the SF25 lost traction at a critical point. With the inertia thrown in, he had no choice but to leave the track and cross the grass area to rejoin just in front of the Red Bull. The SF25 is a car that, although it has improved in traction and top speed, is still sensitive under long braking and in low grip conditions. This is where Hamilton made his mistake. He pushed the limit knowing that it was the critical moment to preserve a position that kept him in the podium zone. But that risk was not free. The consequences would come soon, with a penalty that would completely change the course of the race. The controversy did not take long to explode. While the incident was being analyzed frame by frame on the Ferrari pit wall, the FIA announced that Verstappen would not be penalized for cutting the track at turn 2, but that Hamilton would receive a 10-second penalty for having gained an advantage after his exit at turn 4. That double standard ignited chaos. The radio broadcast reflected it with brutal clarity. Riccardo Adami, his track engineer, informed him directly, "We have a 10-second penalty for the incident with Verstappen." To which Hamilton responded with a suppressed fury that completely shattered the facade of self-control. "That's bullshit, man. The grip there is very low." And that phrase, beyond the emotion, had a technical charge that few understood immediately. Lewis made no excuses. He was explaining from the cockpit something that cannot be seen in the graphics and replays. The Mexican track is treacherous, and in that particular area, the car simply does not stop. It was not a deliberate maneuver. It was a desperate reaction to a limit condition. The penalty Hamilton received was not a simple numerical penalty. It was a sentence that transformed a promising career into a sentence without the possibility of appeal. 10 seconds in Formula One is not just time. They are a strategic eternity. They are the equivalent of losing 2 positions on the track without fighting. It is the most severe punishment that can be applied without leading to disqualification or a drive-through. And most importantly, it is a decision that only makes sense if it is based on a solid technical basis. But did he have it? To understand the root of the punishment, it is necessary to look beyond the moment on the track. The FIA argued that Hamilton, by going off track at turn 4 and rejoining ahead of Verstappen, gained an illegitimate advantage. According to the regulations, this constitutes an infraction if the driver does not give up that position immediately or does not demonstrate that leaving the track was a consequence of avoiding unavoidable contact. In theory, that sounds reasonable. But the technical context turns this rule into a very dangerous gray area. The Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez is not just any circuit. It is a route that operates under extreme atmospheric conditions due to its altitude, more than 2,200 meters above sea level. This height drastically reduces air density, which affects 2 key factors: downforce and cooling. And although on television it may seem that the cars behave normally, the truth is that, in Mexico, the car loses up to 25% of natural downforce compared to a circuit at sea level. That means the brakes take longer to respond, the car slides more easily, and overall grip plummets, especially in heavy braking areas. Turn 4 is precisely one of those critical areas. It is a downhill braking after a long straight, where the drivers arrive at speeds of around 330 kilometers per hour. Braking at the right point requires absolute confidence in the car, the asphalt, the tires, and the environmental conditions. And at that exact point, Hamilton lost grip. Locked wheels. It was not a deliberate decision. It was the natural result of a system that collapses when pushed to its limits under such demanding conditions. And Verstappen? His previous maneuver in turn 1, which also took him off the track and allowed him to rejoin at the front, was not penalized. The steward's argument was that he did not gain a clear advantage. But this is where the interpretation becomes selective. The Dutchman cut the track, returned just in front of Hamilton, and maintained the pressure to the point of forcing the Briton to defend more than necessary in turn 4. That pressure forced the error. The chain of events was not isolated. It was a progression of actions linked together. Without Verstappen's cut, Hamilton's mistake probably wouldn't have happened. The penalty was handed down. 10 seconds. No appeal possible. And in that moment, everything that had been built over the weekend began to collapse, not with a thunderous crash, but with the silent weight of the inevitable. Hamilton's career, which had begun with renewed energy, was now stifled by a sanction that felt disproportionate, arbitrary, and irreversible. On lap 24, Ferrari made the decision to take the penalty during its only scheduled stop. Classic strategy: minimize losses, avoid a second pit stop. But there was a deeper problem. In a sport where modern pit stops last less than 3 seconds, stopping for a full 10 seconds without touching the car is an eternity. It is a forced, unnatural pause. A kind of ritual punishment that takes place in plain sight, with the car stopped while everyone watches, helpless. Those 10 seconds were a tactical execution in slow motion. When the mechanics were finally able to touch the car, mount the tires, and free Hamilton, it was too late. He had fallen to 14th position. The podium, which hours before was a tangible possibility, was no longer even an aspiration. Ahead was an endless line of traffic. Piastri, Ocon, Tsunoda, Behrman, all drivers with decent pace, but also with their own motivations, with something to lose if they gave up position. What came next was a battle of attrition. Hamilton, now out of the points, began to climb. His pace was solid but not spectacular. Not because he didn't have speed, but because the damage had already been done. The dirty air package, premature tire wear from the aggressive maneuvers necessary to overtake, and the time lost in the first sections of traffic limited any attempt at a heroic comeback. From the wall, Riccardo Adami and the rest of the team tried to optimize the remaining strategy as much as possible. But there were no miracles. Options were limited. And the feeling was clear: they were running to minimize damage, to save a few points. And that, after having qualified in P3, was almost insulting. When he crossed the finish line, Hamilton did so in 8th place. 4 points. Nothing else. Nothing less. But very far from the trophy, the glory, the podium that seemed inevitable a few hours before. And the most painful thing was that he did not lose due to performance. It was not a technical failure. It wasn't an accident. It was an interpretation. A punishment that changed everything. This was the collapse. Not from a race, but of a narrative that was taking shape. The first podium with Ferrari. The rediscovery of the competitive Hamilton. Validation that his team change had not been a mistake. All that disappeared, In 10 seconds of punishment, what happened in Mexico was not just a defeat. It was an emotional, sporting, and symbolic turning point. It wasn't just a lost podium. It was a powerful, painful, and deeply revealing message about the current state of Formula One. Do you think Hamilton was punished fairly? Or do you think he was the victim of a biased reading of the facts? Was there favoritism? Inconsistency? Or was it simply human error within a system that has yet to evolve? Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.